Welcome to this explainer. Okay, I want you to completely throw out the idea of an empty universe filled with just isolated chunks of matter, right? Just toss it. Instead, I want you to picture reality as a continuous, highly dynamic, three-dimensional elastic tension net. This is the absolute medium model, or AM model, and by the time we finish today, phenomena that usually seem like pure mathematical magic, things like time dilation and quantum mechanics, are suddenly going to make complete, logical, mechanical sense.
Let's just dive right into this massive paradigm shift. Standard physics usually hands us this matter-centric perspective, which is basically a snapshot observation where we see empty space and treat particles as completely independent, discrete entities. But the medium-centric perspective reveals the actual causal reality. In this view, the universe is a continuous web. It's a hydrodynamic and elastic system. So what we actually perceive as a physical particle is really just a localized topological knot, a vortex sink, happening right within this flowing substrate. Matter isn't an independent thing. It's literally a structural folding of space itself. Here is our roadmap for today's explainer. We'll be hitting 1. The universal tension net. 2. Particles as topological knots. 3. The topological mountain. 4. Geometry of the quantum. 5. Mechanics of relativistic illusions. And finally, 6. Gravity and the cosmic cycle.
All right, kicking things off with Section 1, the universal tension net.
We need to formally redefine the fundamental fabric of the universe. The theoretical designation for this canvas is the DP field, which stands for Dissociative Pressure Field. Think of it as a 3D energetic tension net, and this brilliantly gives us a structural definition of energy. Energy isn't some magical, independent fluid you can pour into a container. Think of it more like a giant cosmic trampoline. Energy is simply the quantitative measure of localized tension, topological folding, and dynamic vibrational stress, happening right inside this elastic web. When the web is perfectly flat, it's at a baseline equilibrium, but when it's stretched or folded or rippling, we measure that mechanical stress and we call it energy.
Moving right along to Section 2, particles as topological knots. So how is a particle actually born inside this continuous net? It happens through a process called vortex self-induction. When localized stress in the DP field hits a critical threshold, the tension lines actually fold inward, creating a recursive knot. It's kind of like twisting a rubber band until it violently bunches up on itself. Because stiffness is an emergent property of folding, this knot's core becomes immensely stiff. Now, to prevent the universe from literally tearing at this point of infinite folding, a geometric necessity called topological encapsulation kicks in. An emergent boundary forms. We call it the active skin. This skin structurally quarantines this frozen, intensely stiff particle core from the rest of the flowing baseline net.
And this active skin, it is literally always working. It's got 3 absolutely crucial jobs. First, it isolates that unresolvable extreme core stiffness. Second, it acts as a step-down buffer, basically a cosmic shock absorber between the frozen core and the baseline vibrational flow of the universe. And third, it performs continuous dissociation. It's actively negotiating the boundary to maintain this isolated plateau of extreme energy without breaking the geometry of the wider energetic net. Being a particle is a highly active, ongoing mechanical process.
Next up, Section 3, the Topological Mountain. We all know E equals mc squared, right? In the traditional matter-centric view, we usually perceive physical mass as a dense battery of potential energy, just waiting to be unleashed. But in our medium-centric reality, there's no actual physical substance being stored. We have to visualize the topological mountain. Forming a particle is the exact mechanical equivalent of pushing dynamic energy up a topological mountain. The DP field has been pulled incredibly taut and locked into this self-inducing vortex geometry. So the energy waiting to be released? It is simply the immense mechanical desire of this tension net to snap back down the mountain to its flat, uncurved baseline equilibrium.
Now, that brings us to a really fascinating question, and it's the perfect hook to launch us into the macromechanics of relativity. If energy and mass are really just localized mechanical tension and geometric knots in an elastic field, what on earth is happening to time? Why does time mysteriously dilate or slow down when you get near a huge cluster of these knots, like a supermassive black hole?
Well, before we can unbend time, we need to cover Section 4, Geometry of the Quantum. In standard physics, energy arriving in these discrete, indivisible packages, quanta, is often just treated as an unexplained mathematical absolute. It just
is what it is. But in this explainer, we see that the quantization of mass and light is not some arbitrary mathematical mystery. It is simply the absolute minimum structural limit of folding or rippling across the physical nodes of this energetic net. A wave traveling through the dp field literally must span from one structural node to the next. The absolute minimum tension required to propagate a single unbroken ripple across these nodes is 1 quanta. Quanta are topologically invariant. It's quite simply the physical, unchangeable graininess of the universe. Which brings us to a huge concept, the Law of Medium-Scale Determinism. Those famous universal constants we use in physics, they are actually the literal physical dimensions of the energetic net. But here's the real kicker. Because the dp field is elastic, it can be stretched and squished. When particles group together, their active skins concentrate and stiffen the surrounding net. Therefore, a quantum's absolute energetic value is strictly relative to the local NLEP density gradient. If particles are squished together, the net stiffens, and the actual energetic value of a quantum mechanically changes.
Armed with that knowledge, we are ready for Section 5, Mechanics of Relativistic Illusions.
We can finally bust some major relativistic myths. Abstract concepts that have baffled people for a century can be systematically resolved as straightforward mechanical scaling phenomena. Take gravitational redshift, for example. The standard model says a photon mysteriously loses energy while climbing out of a gravity well. But in the AM model, the photon is just traveling outward into deep space where the dp field is much more relaxed and widely spread. The wave continues to carry its quantum one node at a time, but because the nodes themselves have physically expanded, the absolute tension value simply scales down. The energy wasn't lost, the structural geometry just expanded. And time dilation? There's no invisible fabric of time bending. It is literally just structural drag experienced by the active skin within a concentrated tension net. When a particle is near a heavy mass, the dp field is highly concentrated and super stiff. The particle's active skin has to process this incredibly stiff medium, which requires more tension to complete a single harmonic cycle. Observers see these slower mechanical cycles and falsely conclude time itself has slowed down. Time is just the observable mechanical reality of an active skin negotiating a stiffer net. It's brilliant.
Finally, Section 6, Gravity and the Cosmic Cycle. Let's zoom out to the big picture. If the universe were just a static field of isolated, scattered particles, the continuous work performed by their active skins would represent an impossible thermodynamic state. The localized flow would eventually completely exhaust the local energetic gradient. So gravity isn't an independent, blind, attractive force. It is an emergent thermodynamic imperative. It is strictly required to prevent the structural exhaustion of the tension net. Gravity naturally merges billions of active skins together to reduce the total surface area of topological strains struggling against the baseline flow. Simply put, gravity is the universe's ultimate self-preservation mechanism.
And this thermodynamic engine naturally drives an eternal four-step breathing cycle called the cosmic frequency plot. First, you have the untangled state, where the universe is widely spread with discrete particles. Second is retangling, where gravity drives mass together to resolve that thermodynamic strain. Third is maximum tangling, where a supermassive black hole hits the absolute physical tension limit of the net, around 10 to the 59th power. And finally, the untangling trigger, where the black hole's isolation bubble literally bursts, seamlessly reintegrating its intensely packed medium right back into the baseline flow, repopulating the spread-out universe. So that depressing mainstream idea of a terminal heat death for the cosmos? Yeah, totally canceled. Our universe is an everlasting oscillating engine.
What you really need to take away here is that this continuous mechanical reality is strictly mathematically regulated by fundamental geometric laws. Localized flow can't last forever. That's axiom 6. Extreme variances are dynamically boxed off by encapsulations, like the active skin, or a black hole's isolation bubble. That's axiom 7. And through it all, the 3D tension net remains totally unbroken, satisfying axiom 3, the conservation of mass energy. The universe systematically averts singularities and absolutely never breaks its own geometry. So I'm going to leave you with this final thought to ponder. We are standing inside a vastly intelligent, eternally breathing tension net. We see galaxies merging, supermassive black holes feeding, and vast expanses of cosmic voids. If our reality is this perpetual machine of tangling and untangling driven by absolute thermodynamic imperatives, what exact phase of the cosmic frequency plot are we experiencing right now? Visualizing reality this way changes absolutely everything, doesn't it? Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive into the mechanical universe. Keep questioning the fabric of reality.